middle class has been getting screwed now for 40 years. It's time for us to reclaim our place in the American democracy that we have here. And we do this, my friends, by building again in the United States of America, by making things again in the United States of America, by filling these factories where we make the electric vehicles, where we make the batteries, where we make the solar panels, where we reverse climate change by putting the American people back to work.
That was Ohio Congressman Tim Ryan earlier tonight making his case to voters at the world-famous fish fry. And for more, Congressman Ryan joins us now. Thank you so much for being with us.
I like him. I think I'm going to vote for him.
So it's interesting to hear you tie this issue of jobs with the issue of climate change.
Yeah.
Walk me through that just a little bit here, because for some folks, you know, they know Ohio and they think about what you talked about on that stage, the distressed times that your state has gone through.
Yeah, so, you know, we just lost a General Motors factory. It used to have 16,000 people. The factory that used to feed into the General Motors factory had 13,000 people. They're both, one's empty and one's got hundreds of people working there. So climate needs to be expressed to the majority of Americans who are struggling to get by as opportunity to build things again, electric vehicles, solar panels, wind turbines. And right now, China's cleaning our clock. They dominate about 50% of the electric vehicle market, about 60% of the solar panel market. So my agenda is create an industrial policy, put people back to work, cut the workers in on the deal so they're making a good wage, not $15 an hour, but $30 or $40 an hour. And you're also reversing climate change. You're taking on China. You're bringing back manufacturing. It's a win across the board.
You said take on China. Right now, yes or no, Donald Trump on the right track with China or the wrong track with China?
Well, he starts off on the right track because they are a problem. They are cheating. They are stealing intellectual property. But he's fumbled, you know, since that time. The way to beat China is to have targeted tariffs, and some of these I even support. What he's doing with Huawei, their internet company, I think is the right thing to do. But you can't beat China just with taxes and tariffs. You got to outcompete them, and that means investments into these new technologies, beat them. Like I said, they control the electric vehicle, they control solar. We got to go after them and outcompete them, and that means investments back in the United States.
But the president would argue, and I've heard his economic advisors say this over and over, even the free traders, you have to shock China into a new sensibility, and the only way to do that is to smack them in the face with tariffs.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that much?
To some extent, but what's the follow-through? Here's my complaint with this whole thing. A tariff is a tactic. It's a tactical move that's supposed to be a part of a larger strategy that you have to beat China. He has no larger strategy, and my criticism is he does this because it gets him in the news. Every few days he tweets, tariffs are on, tariffs are off, tariffs are on, tariffs are off. Where's this long-term strategy? I have a long-term strategy. We're going to outcompete them, we're going to outbuild them, and we're going to out-innovate them. And we're going to do that by putting the American people back to work. That's a big strategy that he hasn't done anything about.
But I think the argument is that the tariffs at least get China to think twice before continuing with the status quo. And
Sure.
That's the point, that in fact, as Majors pointed out, if the landscape looks the same, you've got to do something to shake it up.
So I say it's a tactical move. It's not part of a larger strategy. I mean, if you look at what China's doing, they're building islands in the South China Sea. They have a Belt Road Initiative. They're building infrastructure projects all the way into the Middle East, into Africa, signing long-term 99-year raw material contracts with Africa to feed their industrial machine. They want to be the top 10 in the number one in the top 10 fastest-growing industries in the world. That's a plan. We live in that's a 100-year plan, you know, and they have goals: 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, 100 years. We live in a 24-hour news cycle, and it will be our demise as a country if we keep going down this road.
Okay, we were deep dive on policy. Was it hard for you to put on the T-shirt? Did they give you the right size? When did you get the T-shirt? Let's just do a little bit on that.
We had a wardrobe issue. I put this on over my shirt, my dress shirt.
Right.
I lasted about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I was like this size.
Too hot. Didn't look good.
Straight I mean, you could see I'm sweating here.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
It's a warm
Eating
night.
fish is not easy, Major. I'm just telling you. Tough business we're in here.
Talk to me about the debates. What's going on with preparations here? We're right around the corner from them.
You know, for me, it's really about condensing into a minute. I mean, it sounds like there's going to be a minute, maybe a minute and a half if there's some follow-up. So you probably at this point in your career should have answers for all of the questions that you're going to get. I mean, I've been doing this 17 years in the Congress. I sat on the Defense Committee. I understand the foreign policy issues. But how do you get it down into a minute and making sure you're hitting your key points? To me, that's really going to be the key for all the candidates.
Yeah, how do you stand out?
Well, I'm going to stand out because I'm really the only candidate that talked about what I'm talking about there, that comes from the industrial Midwest, that knows the people that are losing their jobs, that really understands what they're going through. So I need to get my story out. I mean, I only have about 25% of the American voting electorate that knows who I am, and I'm already on the debate stage with people who have 60, 70, 80, or 90% name recognition. So I just need to get this message out, and I think I'm going to be okay. So I'm not going to really change a whole lot. I'm going to be who I am. It's what got me this far. And I think people who try to change and be something that they're not on the debate stage really end up.
Is Ohio winnable in 2020?
If Tim Ryan's the nominee, absolutely.
If Tim Ryan's not the nominee, is it winnable?
I think it's in play. I think the much better chance, obviously, if you have someone from the state. But it's a tough state right now. But I think if we have an economic message major, that's what's going to connect with Ohio. I mean, it's the same in Missouri. It's the same in Michigan and Wisconsin. We didn't have a real economic message last time. President Trump swooped in. He was talking about NAFTA. He was talking about trade. To my folks, white, black, brown, gay, straight, they lost their jobs because the factory went right over the border in Mexico and shipped the product back. Direct result of NAFTA. And he campaigned on that, and he won. So that spoke to the economic anxiety, really, that's still out there. I mean, I know the president likes to say that the unemployment rate is low and the stock market is high, but 75% of the American people are still living paycheck to paycheck. And if we've got to speak directly to that anxiety that the American people are having right now.
Do you think that, as some have said, that the Democratic Party has left some, particularly in your part of the country, in the Midwest and the Rust Belt, behind? That, in fact, as you talked about on that stage, there needs to be a greater emphasis on places like Ohio and places here like South Carolina.
Yeah, no question about it. We've got to have a working class agenda. As I said, white, black, brown, gay, straight. I mean, it's for the working class. How do we cut them in on the deal? They're struggling, and if you're going to win Ohio, you got to have that message. But here's the thing. That message is bigger than just Ohio. I mean, you go out to Los Angeles, there's tent cities of homeless people, families. Same thing in San Francisco. You see people that don't have affordable housing
living in cars.
In many places.
Minivans, etc.
Living in their cars. It's sad as can be. There's an opiate epidemic, a meth epidemic, high teen suicide rate. Farmers have a high suicide rate. Farmers haven't made a profit in 5 years. So what I'm going to do is to say, look, let's all come together. Everyone who's having a really tough time, let's come together and let's reset the agenda for the working class people. And here's what I said there on the speech that you did not play, is that if the center of gravity of the Democratic Party moves from the coasts in the Ivy League to a candidate from Youngstown, Ohio, the Republicans are going to be in a lot of trouble because it's not just Donald Trump now, a working class blue-collar candidate from Youngstown. Mitch McConnell better look out because he's underwater in Kentucky, and I live just a few hours from Kentucky. Lindsey Graham in South Carolina, a lot of job loss here over the years. Same reason, trade, globalization, the government hasn't responded. I think we put that in play. North Carolina's in play. Iowa's in play. West Virginia may be in play, depending on the candidate, because there's so much hurt there. And if we can streak directly to that with a blue-collar candidate, I think we can transform the map.
Congressman Tim Ryan. Congressman, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Safe travels. Good to see you.
Thanks, Major.
You've been watching live coverage from Columbia, South Carolina. Thank you, Major Garrett. Major, what is this? It's like a wrap.
Is it a wrap? Are we done?
After
700 continuous hours of fish fry coverage, we're done? Are you serious?
Time has come to an
I've
end.
eaten 17 bugs in the last half hour. It can't be over.
All right, thanks to all of you who have joined us tonight, including our CBS News team, and thanks to the local reporters as well who know South Carolina best. Thank you to our listeners on CBS News Radio across the country. After the break, my colleague Tanya Rivero brings you the rest of the day's news. You've been streaming Red and Blue live from Congressman Jim Clyburn's world-famous fish fry.